Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Hello, and welcome to a glorious Thorsday episode of Purple Daily. Not just Thorsday, but also the first day of Judd's Camp Notes 2025
Football
edition, OTA edition.
Cheers.
How are
Cheers
we
to
feeling
that.
here today?
Thor?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
He just wants to talk about Pookie.
Yeah. Don't
He just
worry.
wants to talk about...
We've got some
I do.
Pookie updates for you. JJ
Okay, good.
McCarthy no longer being hidden by the Vikings. Last year at this time, it was like the Vikings Entertainment Network or Vikings.com would put out a photo album of 100 photos from OTAs. None of JJ McCarthy because they were trying to keep him low profile. Now he's front and center. He's doing the media thing. He's QB1. So we'll get to Judd's Camp Notes, heavy dose of JJ McCarthy or Pookie, as Thor likes to call him. But first, let's start off at our Pookie, which is Quick Trip. Judd, let's do it.
Yeah, because this is a Pookie that is incredibly special because it makes your life easier. Quick Trip, that's exactly what they do. You stop in, you breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything that you could possibly want. I mean, if you're driving to work and you're like, oh, I forgot my lunch, don't worry about it. Quick Trip is there to the rescue. An outstanding variety of foods and snacks as well. Heck, if you need gasoline, don't let that tank get to E. You stop at Quick Trip, and if you don't have time to go in and shop, that's fine too. Put the app on your phone. Guess what? You're going to walk in, pick up exactly what you need because it's going to be there. Courteous, professional, outstanding. That is Quick Trip. Give them a try if you have not, and if you have, you know what I'm talking about with the folks at Quick Trip.
All right.
Football.
We're going to turn the reins over here to Judd's Camp Notes, I was in indoor practice because it was raining yesterday,
Yeah,
right?
we were in the yep.
Okay.
It was indoors. But you know what? It was very productive. A lot of work done still. So, and let's rip the Band-Aid off. It's what Thor wants.
Yep.
He's been thirsting for this for at
Months.
least a day, if not two. Yeah, if not months.
Months.
That is the performance of JJ McCarthy. Unquestionably QB1. I do have some notes on QB2 as well. Those will not be as, how can I put it, uplifting as the notes on Pookie.
Oh, no. Do we
Yeah.
already have a crisis, a QB2 crisis
I
on
got
our hand?
a problem.
So we
I
have
got
a
problem.
QB2 crisis behind a quarterback who's
Well-
never played a regular season game in the NFL. Wow.
Let's just say that Write That Down, the Declan prediction about Howell and Rypien is more alive than ever.
Oh, wow.
So I'll put a pin in that. I'll circle back because I want to start with McCarthy. All right. So it was an interesting practice because one is, no surprise, it's done at half speed, but there were drills where defensive coordinator Brian Flores didn't get the memo. The defense was flying around, which is a good thing for McCarthy. This is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I want to start with this, though, because I think it's the most important thing. And it's a cautionary tale for all of you who get into Kirk Cousins leaves, Justin Jefferson's gone too. And then it's like, you can't let Darnold go. No, I mean, what's going to happen? He's loved. I don't remember. Attendance at OTAs, not mandatory, but like with O'Connell, has been always really good. Attendance is really good. So this is not breaking news, but what's happening is interesting. Justin Jefferson used to skip the majority of the OTAs. Again, voluntary. The first 2 days he has been there. Jordan Addison there. I was going through the depth chart and essentially the entire offense. Everyone who's important is there. And I think that this is a nod to O'Connell and McCarthy. The fact that McCarthy is able to get on the field work with all of his receivers who matter, I think is huge. I don't think Justin Jefferson being there is any type of accident. I think that the relationship that he and McCarthy, which JJ talked about at his press conference, that they've established is absolutely huge. I think Justin is well aware of the fact that if the Vikings are going to win a Super Bowl with Jefferson in purple, it's going to be with McCarthy as his QB. Let me just put it this way, and I give credit to Jefferson, I give credit to O'Connell and I give credit, Thorsday, to your guy McCarthy as well. The buy-in right now, and there's a lot of things that I'm about to tell you in the notes from the practice that you can question. The buy-in cannot be questioned. It is huge. And Justin Jefferson, who is essentially the captain right now of this team, leading the charge by showing his belief in working with the young quarterback.
I love that. Yeah. Do we ever see Justin Jefferson with Kirk Cousins at a Timberwolves playoff game? You ever see that? You ever see him showing up to the OTAs like this? Like we have entered a new era of Vikings football. That buy-in that you talked to, Phil, we'll go back to that tweet that JJ sent out when he was at IMG, the November before he enrolled at Michigan, when Michigan was struggling that year before he enrolled. Like that's a leader. That's a guy that people are going to run through the wall for and follow behind. So yeah, it's pretty telling that the best player on the team has gone to the lengths that he has to forge a relationship with the young quarterback.
I think it was the latest Vikings news episode earlier this week, or as some people call it, more Vikings news. Judd, you mentioned that I can't remember how you phrased it, but there was like an allusion to the fact that Jefferson may not be at the voluntary workouts because like it's at times he hasn't shown. Now last year there was a contract situation kind of lingering, and I bit my tongue, but I was kind of thinking I didn't want to make it a thing when maybe it's not a thing. But I was thinking when it was like, oh, he's not going to show up. I feel like he should be there. I know he's a veteran now and he's Justin Jefferson and he doesn't necessarily need to go and run routes himself in shorts and shells and whatever. But I do feel like that timing with McCarthy, who he hasn't worked with that much, like it's not like those guys were paired together much at all in the training camp portions. Darnold was the QB1 for most of that time, and then McCarthy missed all the regular season reps. And I was thinking, I feel like that's, I don't know, not a red flag, but just kind of a problem. I loved when I saw OTA day one and the Vikings are putting out photos and videos. Yes, that is the right move if you are Jefferson. Set an example, build chemistry, build timing, go to the Wolves game together a couple weeks ago. So, yes, notch one for he's not sitting on a boat with a bunch of scantily clad women holding substances, like he's at practice with his QB1. And I thought that was great. I think Judd nailed it here with camp note number 1.
And O'Connell talked about it in his press conference after the practice. And it's very clear that because he and Justin correspond a lot, and it's very clear that they talked about this. But as O'Connell said too, when Justin Jefferson's out there humping it in May and working his ass off, who on that team can then say, I don't really want to work to like there's a standard. Like Justin Jefferson being there and working sets a standard that leaves nobody else in position to be like, well, I didn't work hard or I didn't show up. So I just think that I think the most important word here is buy-in. I think the buy-in is enormous. I think the buy-in, this team won 14 games. They don't have time for, well, now we have a young QB, so watch us take some steps backwards. That's not the intention here. The intention here is to pick up where Darnold left off. And ultimately, I think that they have a better quarterback to do so. So, like, this is to me, that was the most important takeaway from the entire day, which is they are all in the deep end of the pool. Young QB narrative be damned.
Hey, can I real quick here? I don't want to jump in line. So you slap me on the back of the hand if I'm jumping Judd's camp notes here, but
No,
are we gonna? Can we get to the quote about perfection that McCarthy said yesterday? So I loved this. He said, everyone wants to be perfect, especially at the quarterback position. The more you try to be perfect, it's going to kill you more than your imperfections will. I think, and not to do the direct comparison, but Kirk Cousins was here for 6 years, and he played at a high level for chunks, but one of the big kryptonites for Kirk was at times he would lean toward avoiding a mistake versus trying to make something happen and being okay with the interception. And we referenced a number of times during Kirk's career, in the early portions of his autobiography, he references a game Michigan State versus Notre Dame in South Bend, where they had a field goal kind of sealed up, and he forced something and made a mistake and a game-changing interception, and it really weighed on him that he was the reason why his team lost that football game. And I think that's been part of Kirk's ethos throughout his career, that he's going to put up numbers. He's super talented. He's been one of the top 15 quarterbacks in the league for a long stretch. But at the end of the day, he's looking to avoid a mistake more than he's looking to maybe make something happen at the higher end. And JJ McCarthy, the fact that he understands it's okay to make some mistakes. Josh Allen makes a lot of mistakes. Patrick Mahomes throws interceptions. Lamar Jackson doesn't throw many interceptions, but Joe Burrow will have multi-interception games. But if you're stacking the big plays on the upside, that's how you win. You don't win a Super Bowl by just avoiding mistakes for 5 months. You got to be able to take some risks and throw a football into a tight window, maybe before the receiver is even open. So, Thor, I was wondering, let's throw it to Thor here. Your thoughts on, I'm sure you saw that quote about not trying to be perfect because it'll kill you more than your imperfections will.
Yeah, the only risk in life is not taking chances, right? It's the only way to guarantee you lose. If you don't, we talked about this vis-a-vis Kwesi and his quarterback decisions, right? Resetting the roster. The easy thing to have done would have been to sign Kirk Cousins the extension. Most of the fan base would have been like, great, awesome, the next day, right? Same thing with Sam Darnold. You had to take some real risk there for the shot at the enormous payoff. It's the same thing on the football field. So yeah, it's well said. It's another indication of how tightly that kid's head is screwed on. He sees the whole playing field, and he loved the mindset.
His practice that we watched on Wednesday is also dovetails perfectly into that quote. Now, first of all, just to be clear, the defense at times was flying around, but the offense is trying to work at half speed. They're installing things. Like, for the most part, nothing McCarthy did. He completed a nice pass deep to Jefferson, but for the most part, nothing he did was of big note because it's such an early progression now, and he is trying to get things down. And after almost every pass, a coach, including O'Connell, would go talk to him. So, like, this is the fundamental installation of the maturation of McCarthy. But let me give you one play in particular that sort of illustrates that quote perfectly, okay? So I believe it was the first pass that JJ threw in 7-on-7, he threw a pass for Jefferson over the middle into a window that was incredibly tight. Byron Murphy Jr. tipped it, and Ivan Pace picked it off. But here's the important thing. Number one is he took a chance to see, and I think that McCarthy, if there's going to be an early fault, it's going to be his arm is stronger than anyone thinks. So, like, the narrative that ever came out about, and it must have been because Michigan ran the ball a lot, Thor, but the narrative that came out about our arm strength, which was, by the way, back in 2015, probably true on Teddy, but on JJ, it's not. I'm not saying he's got a howitzer, but he certainly has a good arm, a very good arm. So he tried to fit in this pass. It got tipped and picked. But as O'Connell said at his press conference, JJ McCarthy Justin Jefferson's going to make it very clear to JJ McCarthy that at the top of the route, I will win. You just have to trust me. At the end of the day, I will win every single time. Is that overconfidence? Perhaps. But he's Justin bleeping Jefferson, right? So that's the type of pass I think that Kirk or a risk-adverse QB or a QB with an arm that's not as good, we'll talk about Sam in a second here, wouldn't make. McCarthy will. So, like, that pick to me was a good sign because it's establishing the rapport, it's establishing the trust, it's establishing what can we get away with as a tandem, as a duo. Justin Jefferson, JJ McCarthy. What can we exploit? What can we do? Because quite frankly, JJ McCarthy's being given a gift. Arguably the best receiver in the National Football League right now. So I thought that play in particular illustrated that quote, because if you look at what they're doing and you look at the trust that Jefferson has in himself and ultimately probably McCarthy, Thor, I think all of that fits together perfectly in sort of the stew of the direction this is going.
Yeah, McCarthy was the best quarterback in last year's draft at intermediate throws between the hashes, and so you like to see them attacking that. The more efficiently you can attack the middle of the field as an NFL quarterback, the better the spacing will be over the rest of the field for your other playmakers, right? Like if defense knows they don't have to defend over the middle, that's how you easily drop 2 high safeties for the entire game. If you want to get a single high safety look, you need to be paper cutting the defense throughout the game over the middle. So I like that they're working on that. He'll obviously test those windows. And that's what he did at Michigan. That's what he's going to do here. That's within structure stuff. The interesting thing when he went to Michigan, he was this potentially prodigious off platform, off script type quarterback prospect. He goes and picks a school where it's the pro style 12 personnel offense for a former NFL quarterback and also a former NFL head coach that wanted him to play within structure. By the 3rd season, he wasn't even 21 years old yet. Obviously, they win the national title there. JJ McCarthy was the best quarterback throwing over the middle between the hashes. The interesting thing I think to monitor in camp here is McCarthy's one of the better throwing on the run quarterbacks we've seen enter the NFL over the last decade. It's playing with him is different than playing with Sam Darnold. It's different than playing with Kirk Cousins. The structure stuff should be fairly similar. I think JJ might be a little bit better in terms of fitting some balls in the window at the intermediate there, but the off script stuff, practicing the second bites at the apple, breaking off your route, stuff like that, getting on the same page when you're freelancing, right? When the answer wasn't there for Sam Darnold after the first read, second read, that's where you got in trouble because he's not going to create off script when the answer is not there for him. That's the thing that JJ McCarthy is best at. So I'll be curious to see what they do throughout camp, trying to get receivers more comfortable with the freelancing quarterback, where if the concept of the play isn't there, all right, now we're figuring it out and we're playing playground ball off script.
Boy, it just inject Judd's camp notes straight into my being.
We're not seeing that yet. Like that's a whole different chapter.
Yeah.
That to be written in these OTAs, training camp. Like I am excited. I am super excited to see that because that buys you time as well.
Yeah.
And that's where downfield wide receivers can win.
That's the thing. I mean, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, these are guys that went along the route path, right? And we saw quarterbacks playing within structure with them recently where they had effectiveness with that. You add to that now the ability where if, again, that first look's not there, that second look's not there. Now we're freelancing. This fleet, this potentially best pass catching core in the entire NFL, you add everyone together. We haven't seen them with the freelancing stuff. And how does that look? Nope. You might play those receivers games up even more.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Question, Thor. Coming out of college, because I don't want to be unfair here based on an OTA practice, so I'm going to ask you a question. Coming out of college, what was the scouting report on Sam Howell's arm? Do you remember?
Yeah, decent, but not howitzer. He was really good downfield in college because he played in a Phil Longo offense where you read the numbers pre-snap, and then when they knew they had the one-on-one look, he would throw it deep. Diami Brown was the receiver he did a lot to at UNC. But because of that, with the advantageous looks that you knew you were getting pre-snap, he ended up having some effectiveness with that, but not a howitzer arm for Howell.
Okay, because I saw, I want to say 3 to 5 throws by him yesterday that reminded me of, and this was a veteran QB who was very savvy and smart. So I'm only comparing arm strength. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Reminded me of Brad Johnson training camp 2005. And Brad made do. Like he was a very smart winning QB, obviously.
Big bad Brad.
Yeah.
TikTok legend.
So I'm not speaking ill of Brad here, but Howell's arm, at least what I saw yesterday, underwhelmed me to a huge degree.
So they're not going to be calling him the Howlowitzer?
Oh, no. Passes were hanging up. Throws, the out routes to the sidelines were, it was one OTA practice. I don't know. Perhaps he's been on a couch. I don't know what's going on here. But I'm just going to tell you right now, underwhelmed on arm strength. And I asked someone as well in watching this, you guys, I said, what I mean, the Commanders allowed this guy, I think, to lead the league in pass attempts the year that he started. I don't know. I mean, they were clearly tanking. But anyway, the arm, the first impression of the arm strength, which is all I can bring you in Judd's camp notes, I was taken aback by what I didn't see.
So Sam Howell his arm strength was so bad it got the owner kicked out in Washington. That's how bad he was.
I'm telling you what I saw for one practice. I'll update you if it changes.
The McCarthy arm strength thing, and I was probably at 3 or 4 practices that he threw the ball at last training camp. I noticed, just to circle back to that for a second, I noticed that too, because like Thor watched a bunch of college tape on McCarthy, and you were preaching it, but. And I saw maybe 5 Michigan games, and they're running the ball a lot, and it's a very controlled offense. But watching him, the arm strength thing is absolutely downplayed. I feel like in the evaluation process, like what we've seen of McCarthy the last 2 years in college and year 1 in the NFL. So
I would go beyond downplayed. There was a lot of rotten evaluations and opinions out there that informed, initially when we got into that draft process, the idea that, the thought that JJ McCarthy had a weak arm was one of the most absurd things that I've seen forwarded in a pre-draft process over the last decade. It's like, hey, morons who have my job, just literally watch the game. The cut-ups are there for you. If you guys were too lazy to watch Michigan in the moment, the cut-ups are there for you. And if you're too lazy to watch the cut-ups, look at the freaking NFL Combine Max Velo throw competition where he finished 1 mile per hour less than the record there. Or go to the practice, one or the other. What are we talking about if you're not going to do any of those things? It's right there for you. If you don't believe your eyes, you can look at the objective data. There was a lot of people talking on JJ McCarthy's game who had clearly never watched him play. The ball detonates out of his hand. Like Judd, you said you wouldn't go as far as saying a howitzer. I will. He's got a howitzer. Yeah. And not only does he have a howitzer, he takes that howitzer with him on the move. This is where it becomes special with him. Because it's the thing of keeping the mechanics with you on the move. So the guy always has his tripod with him, looking down the scope as he is navigating around and can put that ball wherever he wants in the field. 3 sectors down opposite hash. Kid's got a bazooka.
Let's go right now.
There we go. I'm waving the flag for you, Thorsday.
All right, let's go.
I'm waving the flag.
Yeah,
there it is. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah. I love it. All right, there you go.
Need to take a cold shower after.
I got I've actually got a thought on scouting off of that too. I will say this. When it comes to arm strength, this is why I believe from a scouting standpoint, you got to go old school and go to games or practices as well. JJ McCarthy's arm strength, when you see it, as you said, emanate from the hand, the arm, right? In person is like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like, watch film, that's fine. But I don't think watching film of JJ, and Phil's right too, at training camp last summer, I don't think watching film of JJ does justice because you don't get the full experience of seeing the ball come out of his hand, and you don't get the full experience of seeing exactly how hard that ball is thrown. So I do think McCarthy was probably knocked by people who just watched film and didn't actually see it in person, because that to me on QBs is where you can tell the difference from like bad arm, decent arm, really good arm, great arm.
Yeah, and the thing, so just a quick aside for people out there, because I don't think people really understand some of the aspects of the draft process. The way that some of these evaluations begin, there's 2 scouting services in the NFL. One's called Blesto, one's called NFS. Teams have their Blesto scout, their NFS scout. They turn in scouting reports, which essentially goes to a league-wide database. And often you have just the viewpoints of 2 individuals on a player that is informing how the rest of the NFL might see them heading in, at least from a treetop perspective. You're going to have area scouts that for your own team that end up seeing those guys. But a lot of the times the opinion that we have, heading in, Blesto grade, NFS grade on a guy into their last season, it's just from 2 different people. JJ was slept on heading into that last year, and he did have things that he needed to work on coming out of the sophomore season. But that's where he was rated way below these guys. And then you had like a issue with working against that narrative the rest of that season, where you had Caleb Williams is already regarded as he's going to be the first overall pick. Drake May, They thought at the time he was going to be the 2nd overall pick. Turned out he was the 3rd overall pick. But you already have those guys. They're already sort of put into that position. And then with JJ, the thing with his arm that he absolutely did have to work on wasn't arm strength. He has more arm strength. You could argue, put him up there with any of those 5 guys that were taken in the first round that year. It was the nuance of it. It's the thing of throwing the lasers downfield when if you just change the mechanics a little bit, you can take off some of the RPMs on that. You can trade some of that out for loft and trajectory, right? More of the thing of dropping it in the bucket. There was the thing of when he threw to the left. You guys remember that narrative. This is one of the ones that was actually true. There were so few of the narratives with McCarthy's game that were true. But one of the other ones was sometimes in college when he would throw to the left, he would make this elongated sort of swing over where if he had just reset, for just taking a beat reset, and then throw it that way, you wouldn't have the errant of accuracy. So there was just a couple of these things that you could mechanically tweak. But the thing of layering balls, the thing of taking something off of it, right? I think Justin Jefferson talked about that too, right? Like with young quarterbacks often coming into the league, they often have this. And then that's what NFL coaching is working on. It's getting them to the last level with the layering and the taking the speeds off and basically having a pitch for every situation on the field, right? As far as the layering and the touch and the velocity and all those sorts of things. It's just getting more clubs in his bag.
You can take JJ McCarthy's arm talent to the bank.
Yeah.
The North American Banking Company, which is powering this Thorsday and these Judd's camp notes here, which we'll get to more of in just a moment. But yeah, since 1998, North American Banking Company has been a Minnesota-based staple, 6 locations across the Twin Cities, so likely one within driving distance of wherever you live or work. And they specialize in personal relationships. They specialize in the safety and security of your account. So whether it's checking and savings, the blocking and the tackling of your finances, or whether it's something bigger, a chunk play down the field, like you're buying a new home and you need help with the mortgage process, or you're financing a big project or a new business, North American Banking Company can help you. We appreciate their partnership here on Purple Daily and for you guys supporting them. nabankcode.com/Mackey to learn more. That's nabankcode.com/Mackey, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Also, a Standard Heating and Air Conditioning is here for the audience, Declan.
That's right. If you need that AC tune-up, go contact our friends at Standard Heating. And in fact, they make it very easy for you over there at Standard Heating. If you don't want to pick up the phone and I got to talk to a representative, you can just email them. You can text them. You can coordinate all this stuff from just your fingertips. So if that's something you're interested in, if you need to figure out how to get that AC working with 90-degree weather on the horizon here in the Twin Cities, don't wait for that thing to be on the fritz. Make sure it's in good condition. Don't DIY it. Handle with the experts. Let the experts handle it for you at Standard Heating. Go to standardheating.com to learn more.
All right, back to Judd's camp notes.
If it's okay, Pookie time is done.
Oh,
I've emptied the bag on Pookie.
Okay, that's okay.
Sorry, Thor.
We can move on.
Now.
We can move on.
Oh God, there's way more.
But you'll
to come.
be back on Monday.
Yeah.
It's open to the media on Monday. There'll be more Pookie notes. next week.
There's way more. We're just starting, but there are some other items of interest that I would like to bring to the panel here.
Yeah.
I want to start with the biggest change that I've seen among Vikings players from the end of 2020, the 2024 campaign to the beginning of the 2025 one. Jalen Naylor has switched his number from 83 to 1. But that's only part of the story. The real story is this. He's also switched his body. He is bigger, stronger. He has definitely gained weight, not fat, muscle. He has remade himself. And it's interesting because he's coming off a year where he was the third receiver, caught 28 passes for 414 yards and 6 touchdowns. But he also had, go back to the Rams game, he also had some crucial drops, okay?
Yeah.
2 big things here. One is, we've talked about this. Jordan Addison, at some point, my guess is in training camp, is going to be suspended for 2 to 3 games for his off-the-field transgressions on the freeway in Los Angeles last July, because the league doesn't need you to be convicted to suspend you. Second of all, probably most importantly as well, Jalen is going to be a free agent. And if he has a big year, he is going to, A, get paid, and B, probably sign with a team where he can be at the very least, I think, the number 2 receiver, at least going into their training camp in 2026. But when you see him physically, at first, you won't recognize him. And second of all, I think this is a great thing because it's very clear that he is determined to be in the mix. And again, to go back to Pookie, when we're talking about Jefferson, Addison, Naylor potentially being a factor, are you kidding me? Hawkinson, a run game, a lot to like, but credit to Jalen because he has made the most of his time off since the season ended against the Rams in that playoff game.
Well, it's funny what happens when that contract season kicks in, that unrestricted free agency potentially in about 10 months from now, hit the weight room, get in the best shape of your life. But hey, if he wants to use the Vikings for 1 year of a springboard into a life-changing contract, I mean, he's not going to get like $20 million a year, but this is his chance next spring to get a bag of money, a generational bag of money, even if it's a few $1,000,000 a year. So I don't, even though he's hulked up and he's changed his number and maybe he's a contributor, I don't think it's going to lead to an extension, but a nice weapon if he's going to maybe be more secure with not dropping passes. Very interesting.
Yeah, that it definitely is, and we get the best shape of their life narrative every year at this time. You're a little bit reticent at that, but the fact that he showed up, he appears to have been locked in this offseason. That's a good sign heading into that last year of his contract. I'm curious with the new body constitution that he appears to have. This is a guy who has struggled with nagging injuries throughout his career, going back to college. It's one of the reasons that he fell down in the draft. Be curious to see, does this extra muscle, does it inoculate him from that? Does it accelerate that? Like that's one thing to keep an eye on, because the best ability is availability, of course. So that's a big thing. But yeah, if he played his game up at all and perhaps did stuff to potentially inoculate from injuries, hats off.
It is, I'm just curious. That's a good question too, because getting bigger does not necessarily mean that you're assured of staying healthy. In some cases, Thor, it can cause problems, but it's just he very clearly has taken the issues seriously. And unfortunately, the drops cast a little bit of a negative light on a season that was actually, for a third guy, pretty good. So I do think he has the opportunity here, especially if Jordan is suspended for 3 games, to make a mark here. All right, the next one. Isaiah Rodgers, who I think has a very good chance to start at cornerback. Not at the OTA, again, voluntary. And guys can come and go as well. So, like, just because you're not there on Wednesday doesn't mean that you weren't there on Tuesday, or you could be there on Monday. So just to be very, very clear here. But anyway, without him there, first team cornerback reps, obviously Byron Murphy Jr. got his. More interestingly, though, Dwight McLaughlin got some. Mekhi Blackman got some. Jeff Okudah got a bunch of them. So he's going to get a chance here. He's going to get a chance. He can play special teams. I think he makes the roster regardless, if nothing else, as a special teams guy and a depth guy. But Brian Flores loves projects. And Jeff Okudah is definitely probably, at this point, a project, but at one time was a huge prospect. Not saying he's going to become that, but I do think it's interesting that he was firmly in the mix, and it's very clearly going to get some type of chance to prove that that he can play on defense, not just special teams.
So Brian Flores has been really good about picking the thing that you are very good at and hammering it, and then maybe minimizing exposure to the things that you aren't that great at. Okay, Ivan Pace Jr., moving forward, run protection as a blitzer. Okay, lean into that. As a coverage guy, okay, we're going to pull you off the field and maybe put an extra safety or nickel cornerback or have Blake Cashman handle it. Jeff Okudah has been awful in coverage, which is a problem when you're a cornerback in the NFL. But he's actually been very good to excellent at times in run coverage and run just tackling and all those things. So I do wonder, like, is there a place for Jeff Okudah on the more run-heavy downs, the first and second downs, some sub-packages, or maybe even, like, red zone where it's a little more condensed and you don't have to worry about covering like 40 yards worth of pasture, but teams might run the ball. I just wonder if Flores looks at a skill set and leans into it with Jeff Okudah, Thor.
Yeah, and I need more Judd's camp notes on Okudah like the rest of the summer. I need you having eyes on Jeff Okudah because I don't understand why he has been bad in coverage in the NFL. Branson, really. I don't understand it from what I saw of him at Ohio State. That was one of the cleaner guys as far as not giving up separation and always being in the grill and the hip pocket and always being there at the catch point to challenge without ever getting flagged. Like, if there was a cornerback that wasn't going to miss, I would have assumed it would have been Jeff Okudah. Obviously, that's what the Lions thought as well. I don't understand why he's been so bad in coverage. And I know that there's been injuries, but you don't forget how to cover someone because of an injury, right? The athleticism can depreciate a little bit, but Judd, I'll be very curious what you see on Okudah the rest of the time. That feistiness element of his game obviously translated to the run defense. I don't know why it hasn't to coverage to this point. Judd, we're going to have to hear more from you the rest of the summer.
Yeah, and I'm curious. So when Rodgers returns, which again he might be there on Monday, I think he's going to get a really good chance to start. So how they weave guys in then with him present will be fun to watch. Like if you were to ask me right now, I think your starters are for sure Byron Murphy Jr., but he's going to slide inside, I think, still in the nickel, and you're in the nickel a ton. I think that Blackman has a real chance to make a run at a job. Don't sleep on the fact that McLaughlin, I think, is well-liked. He impressed them, and he was a nice find. So the Okudah thing to me, like he probably got more first-team reps than I expected. So there's definitely something brewing. And Flores is always good for at least one surprise of, I didn't expect to see this. So, yeah, it will be. The Rodgers factor on first-team snaps is what I'm very curious to see. How much of those does he get? Because the one thing that we know is Isaiah Rodgers does not sign here unless Flores pushed for it. And Flores pushed for it big time. So there's going to be some interesting games here as far as who's where when he returns to the practices.
And also, what can those guys what are they showing now? How comfortable is the team with that room coming out of these OTAs? There's starting to pick up some chatter about a guy in Miami who June 1st, I think, is 3 days away. It becomes easier for him to move to another team after that date. Yeah. I happen to think that the only nitpick I have about the roster, I happen to think they're one corner short right now. That's about it from my side. And whichever corner that ends up being, you have the flexibility still to make a move. We'll see if one's coming, but yeah. But if they feel better about that room than I do coming out of here, the OTAs maybe not, but that's the one move I would like to see made.
Jalen Ramsey, huh? Jalen
Ramsey,
yeah. And they do have cap space to absorb in 2025 for anyone.
They sure do. And people are like, oh, Jalen Ramsey, he's old and he's washed up. Look at how many Pro Bowls and All-Pro teams Charles Woodson made after the age of 31. And it's another guy, like if you were to think of the guys that Ramsey projects closest to, obviously Woodson's about at the top of the mountain, but how can you say that he has no chance of an analogous percentage of career progression going forward? It's a guy that we know has position versatility. Know he works well with Flores, right? Like the Flores knows how to use him. I don't know. I would be sniffing around that one.
Interesting. All right, let's wrap up here for my camp notes from Wednesday. Offensive line. Let's talk about some meat and potatoes, boys.
Yeah,
we talked about Pookie. Pookie plays quarterback. That's great. We've talked about skill positions. Let's talk about offensive line, because here's what I learned on Wednesday. We're not going to see, this is not a surprise, Christian Darrisaw until training camp at the earliest, but also Will Fries, who was signed to a contract from the Colts as a free agent, who suffered a fractured tibia in week 5 last year. From what O'Connell said, he might start to take part in these practices eventually, but probably not. So training camp as well. So no Will Fries for the spring, no Darisaw, which is a little disappointing, but it's fine. Ryan Kelly is back. I believe, he had a neck injury. He had a couple of things that brought a premature end to his 2024 as well. But without Fries there, Blake Brandel was at the right guard spot. And as you'll recall, he played the left guard last season because first-round pick Donovan Jackson, I know you're going to be shocked by this, there's not really going to be a competition for his job. It's his job to lose completely. And the other interesting thing I thought was because Ryan Kelly, I like the signing, but he's a veteran who's been hurt and he's had a history of concussion problems. Who is your backup center? The number 2 center on Wednesday, at least, was Phil's guy, Wake Forest own 7th round pick 2024, Michael Juergens.
And if he's my guy, he's definitely not Thor's guy because Thor has not seen it going back to last year's draft process. So that might be a position of upgrade if Thor is correct on that.
Yeah, if it was me, I might have been investigating in the draft a little bit more, but obviously, that position, but obviously you had the pick issue that you did there. Won't be an issue going forward. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he has a good camp.
As far as the Darisaw replacement at left tackle, it is Justin School, who was signed. He's been with San Francisco. Tampa
Judd,
Bay.
Yep. His name now is Justin Skull.
Oh, Justin Skull.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. Tell him to change it. Tell him to change the back of his jersey then. S-A-O-L.
He should.
Skull.
Yeah,
You can't if he changes it, you can't cut him, right?
You can't cut him.
No.
It's
If
like
you
a
legally
no trade
change it,
clause, no cut
that's it.
clause.
He and Victor.
Yeah, that's right.
They'd be best friends.
Ragnar got cut because he demanded $20,000 per game. Like
yeah,
10 years
that didn't
ago.
work out
So,
too well for Ragnar. He pulled
Played
the power
hardball.
play. He pulled the power play, and it didn't work out well. So he's the replacement. Who was the guy that came in a bunch a year ago? Quessenberry, I believe it was. He's the replacement for Quessenberry. I believe he is the swing tackle, but I will say this: working with the first team at times, rotating in just a little bit in place of Brian O'Neill at right tackle was 2024 draft pick Walter Rouse. There was talk about him going to guard. I saw no evidence of that. But they gave Rouse some snaps with the first team when they took O'Neill out, who I think is just fine. But I thought that was interesting that they are finding a way to give Rouse some first team snaps, which would indicate to me that they have an interest of him at least getting some work in case they might be. I hate to say this because I don't like to be a doomsayer in May, but I wonder if they're trying to get both those tackles set to play. O'Neill's been hurt before. So, like, if you were to lose Darisaw and O'Neill at the same time, or they couldn't play, there is a possibility that the Vikings are safeguarding that by saying, your guy Skoll can play the left tackle and Rouse can play the right tackle. So School's the top option to be the swing tackle, but you would have 2 guys trained in to take the places of the 2 veterans if there's an issue there.
I wonder if they will. I wonder if this is another thing for you to watch out for. If they will like maybe after practice, if they'll do anything with Donovan Jackson at left tackle as a break glass in case of emergency, just like Ohio State did last year when their left tackle Josh Simmons, who ended up going in the first round when he got lost for the season at Oregon, and then Ohio State's offense flubbed around the next 2 games because the replacement stunk. Then they moved Jackson out there, and he buttoned it down through the national title run. That's an interesting break glass in case of emergency guy, but they might just want to be like, he's just coming to the NFL. Let's just get him at the one position.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think eventually what you just said about cross-training him might be possible. Their tendency is to be safe, which I don't mind. And I think that the prospect of starting at left guard on this line with these expectations is pretty big. So I'll watch for that. I would not expect that they would do that. And if you look, School is a pretty, he's been around. Like, he can definitely plug and play. Not ideal. But I do like the fact that they are going to, or it appears that the mission is to have 2 guys that can play tackle because you don't know there. And again, this season, there's not like a ton of room for, Christian Darrisaw got hurt again. It's done. Like, this is a win now season. So I like having alternatives at multiple positions just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, either way, their starting offensive line is way better than it was, and they have way more depth than they have before. Are they totally there yet? In the future, I think the depth will get even better. But leaps and bounds. I mean, like, you look at the interior offensive line, the guards and the centers that the Vikings have started like the last 4 or 5 years, and then what they're projected to start this year. It's like that LeBron gif of like, I can't believe this is my life.
Yeah.
It's just tremendous.
And before it was the LeBron gif at J.R. Smith with the arms extended. What are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Ed Ingram.
Kept stepping on the foot of Kirk every other play. Oh, God.
Oh, man. Hey, a shout out to Federated Insurance here, too, for helping to power these Judd's Camp Notes. We appreciate Federated and their partnership here on Purple Daily. And they've been partnering with businesses for 120 plus years. It's like having a great offensive line for your business. They focus on safety, preventing claims, and frontline protection while you focus on running your business. They measure their business by the success of yours. True partnerships, face-to-face, eye-to-eye. Federated can help you grow your business through risk management. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, dudes. Judd's Camp Notes coming out swinging, dude. So next Monday, you'll be out there. Mm-hmm. And by the way, did we confirmed our Monday guest, right,
Yes.
Dex?
Yep, we're confirmed. We're good to go.
Ross Tucker is going to be on Purple Daily, make his Purple Daily debut from the Ross Tucker football podcast.
He loves football.
Empire.
That dude
Ross
loves
Tucker
football.
sounds like a guy that loves football too.
Yeah.
Just like us.
Yep. And then we'll devote Tuesday to more Judd's Camp Notes next week. And the Vikings have OTAs sporadically throughout the next. They have a mini camp coming up in a couple of weeks, 2 mandatory mini camps. So Judd's Camp Notes is going to be very busy here over the next couple of weeks. Thor, any other final words of wisdom from you to Pookie before we say goodbye?
Well, just, I was looking up, I was on my Raz pages and my mock draftable pages while, Judd was going through some of these guys, just refamiliarizing myself with some of their measurables. And I came across something that I don't know that I had seen before. I didn't realize before. On mock draftable, they put in all of your NFL combine testing results, right? And then you get like a spider web. So it's like height, weight, wingspan, arm length, hand size, 10-yard split, 40-yard dash, vertical, all this different stuff. And then you see the spider web, and then they show your top 10 closest athletic comparables based on guys of your position that have tested at the combine for the last 30 years. Ty Felton's #1 NFL player comparison based on his measurables over the last 30 years was a guy named Jalen Naylor. Kind of interesting.
Look at that. Wow.
That's
kind of interesting.
They are definitely they confirmed they're looking for a Jalen Naylor replacement once he hits free agency after this year, and they can reset the clock on the contract.
You know what, though?
They just drafted Jalen Naylor again.
Yeah. Except Ty hit the weight room, buddy, because Jalen did.
That's right.
Jalen did.
Maybe we can get him on the Jalen protocol from this last year. We get the personal chef Jalen used. Maybe we get him in
let's start at year 1 instead of year 4 going into the contract year.
Speedy bulked up, boys. That's all I got to say. The guy known as Speedy bulked up.
Let's go. Hopefully he kept the speed and doesn't tear his hamstring off the bone like Thor was alluding to earlier.
Knocking on wood.
Tissue issues.
Thanks, Phil.
So, all right, he's Thor Nystrom. You can find him on Twitter or X at ThorKU. For the Sports Dad, for Judd's Camp Notes, for producer Dex, I'm Phil. This is Purple Daily. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. Happy Thorsday.